One Planet Left Behind. Written by Floats All Boats. Read by Bag Vicodin. Glancing around him furtively, E-Grip slid a finger under his collar. The tension in the long conference room had him steaming, literally. The Actoeshi emit moist, hot air as a means of cooling, and his suit was feeling more and more like it was meant to broil him. At least he wasn't the subject of the chairperson's withering interrogation. That sad fate was reserved for the misfortune of Tam Abril, case manager for Earth, one of 17 pre-FTL worlds under the control of the Bureau for the Uplifting and Refinement of Primitives, the world that was fast becoming a blight in the Bureau's good name. So, continues the chairperson, you incited their first global-scale conflict by assassinating a well-known political figure, expecting planetary unification following the war. Following protocol, Your Eminence. Perhaps miscalculations were made, but... Abel responds with some confidence at first, before withering under the chairperson's hostile gaze. Clearly they were, the chairperson responds. Near unprecedented slaughter, the accidental release of a biological superagent, one intended for total cleansing of the planet as a last resort, mind you, that resulted in a 1 in 3 fatality rate on top of the war. And what did you do next? She is growing wrathful by now, skin turning a vivid purple. The case manager gulps audibly, steam forcibly exiting his pores. I tried again. You, without authorization, gave advanced weapons technology to 2 authoritarian powers, and to make it worse, they were defeated by their enemies as a result of the first independent invention of the atomic bomb since this Bureau's founding. Need I remind you of the catastrophe that led to the Bureau's initial incorporation? No, Chairperson, the case manager coughs. As you say, they have discovered atomics and still are not even close to unification. I was hopeful for a while, as during their space race, they coalesced into 2 main factions, but now both have essentially collapsed and 2 major powers are on the rise. In terms of major entities on the world stage, there are at least 5. The chairman's eyes look as though they are about to pop out of her head. This is inexcusable. You are relieved from your duties, and we will be assigning a new officer to salvage the situation before, gods forbid, they make it off-world still in this disastrous state. Meanwhile, on a barren, red, rocky world, the thin air is filled with the roar of engines, as the largest rocket ever built comes to a standstill on the surface. From the landing module step forth first 1, then 3, then 20 pairs of feet. All assemble around the leader, who takes a fistful of the red dirt in her hand, gazing up at the sky, then looking back to her ship. The SS, look at that, Sally, is magnificent. Today, we take 1 small step for men and women, 1 giant leap for humanity. Let's get to work, folks. You're not being paid to stand around and admire the view. Captain Karen Nyberg, formerly of NASA and now of SpaceX, sets the crew of the Mars Colony Mission 1 to work. Unintelligent Design by Feeds on Anger. Read by a Bag of Vicodin. The fire surrounded her, crawling in close, 1 menacing, perfectly square feed at a time. I watched from the other end of the wooden table. The table was surrounded by dirty plates, my pathway barred. There was nothing I could do. My screams filled the room as I watched my wife collapse. Zababada! Tadoy! I shouted, waving wildly. With my wife dead, I picked up the plate and brought it to the dishwasher. Returning to the living room just a little while later to extinguish the fire with the fire extinguisher I handily kept in my pocket. I tried wondering why I didn't do this while my wife was on fire, but the thoughts disappeared, popped like a bubble. A long, slender gentleman in tattered robes was brooding over the remains of my, remarkably unburned, wife. He leaned on his scythe for support, even though his feet never touched the floor. I approached him carefully and flirtingly introduced myself, following up with a joke. The fellow's name was Jim, but spelled with G-R. He's not from around. As me and Jim were chatting away while watching commercials on repeat, I suddenly had an inexplicable urge to swim. I didn't even know I owned a pool. As I made my way to the backyard, I noted how the majority of my possessions had vanished from existence, which made sense because pools don't pay for themselves. I opened the back door and stepped onto the patio, smiling excitedly at my new swimming pool that was about 5 times as long as it was wide. I did a little twirl in front of the swimming pool and changed into my trunks, carefully descending down the pool ladder. Dare I say, what a beautiful day for 200 laps across the pool. By lap 149, I felt a tinge of fatigue creep into my body. I eyed the poolside for the stepladder, and found it absent. Oh well, nothing an additional 50 laps wouldn't fix. Things appear and disappear all the time. The sudden disappearance of a pool ladder was nothing to worry about. My Olympian-grade level of exercise was briefly halted as shivers crept up my spine when a ghastly wail hissed out of my humble home. Jim had lost at pinball and stomped outside with a bit of a pout. Though his feet don't touch the ground, he expertly mimicked the sound of stomping by thumping the end of his scythe into the ground. As I continued swimming, my thought pattern became awfully binary, alternating between the desire for a pool ladder and that desire quickly being replaced with a desire to swim. I took a brief break from my swimming to die. Family Ties by Joe Ducey. Read by a bag of Vicodin. The steam from the shining locomotive billowed like cloud across the platform, which was scattered with hundreds of students, new and old, off to Hogwarts for another year. Harry Potter, more than used to the stares, the smiles, the curious assessing looks, helped his youngest up onto the train and said his farewells. "Be good, Lily," he said, "and write your mother." Ginny appeared with the other two, and Harry gave them hugs goodbye while their mother loaded them onto the train. He stepped back from the entrance to the carriage and into the path of a wheeled trolley burdened with a trunk, cauldron, and books wrapped in brown paper and twine. An owl, snowy white, familiar amber eyes, rested in a birdcage atop the ordered chaos. "Oh, I'm sorry," squeaked the young girl behind the trolley. "Not your fault," Harry said with an easy smile. "First year?" The girl nodded, unable to suppress an excited grin of her own. She beamed from ear to ear, all 4 feet and change, under a crop of frizzy, blonde hair. Harry had seen his own kids. Lily, only a year older, looked this young, but couldn't imagine himself ever being so small. In the years since the war, the wizarding population in Britain had blossomed. Hogwarts, home to only hundreds of students during Harry's years there, now housed thousands. The castle grew as needed. "Petunia," a low voice said, through a cloud of loose steam. "Mind that trolley, now. A tall man emerged through the cloud, a gentle hand coming to rest on the young girl's, Petunia's, shoulder. Harry and the man met each other's eyes, and 20 years fell away in moments. He had shed most of his weight, or grown into it, Harry thought, through vestiges of heavy jowls. A gut plumped by one too many beers was noticeable under his simple, pinstripe suit. His blonde hair had receded, a crown he kept cut short, and there was something different in his eyes, something kind, gentle. "Hello, Dudley," Harry said. "Harry?" Dudley said, carefully, giving him a polite nod. I never thought we'd actually bump into you." "Who's he, Dad?" little Petunia asked. Dudley swallowed. He gazed at Harry, perhaps trying to read the calm look on his face, as crowds of people parted around them. Laughter and excitement faded to uncertainty. "An old Dudley shook his head. "This is my cousin, Petunia. Harry Potter." Petunia marched around the back of her trolley and stuck her hand out. "Nice to meet you, Harry Her sparkling blue eyes widened. "I read about you. You're in The Fall of the Dark Lord by Hermione Granger." A smile touched Harry's face, but not his eyes. He took Petunia's hand and shook once, politely. "Been a long time," he said to Dudley. "Never thought I'd see you on this platform, though stranger things have happened and all that." Dudley nodded once. A long silence stretched toward uncomfortable. "How are your parents?" Dudley cleared his throat and glanced sideways at Petunia. We haven't really spoken so much in the last few years. They knew Petunia was..." He grit his teeth and forced a smile. "You can imagine." All too well, Harry said, and that was enough. He had learned long ago not to let the past hurt. I want to get on the train, Dad, Petunia said, bouncing on the spot, foot to foot, eager and excited. Dudley nodded. Go see your mother. She's talking to the conductor down there, and get your belongings loaded onto the train. I'll be along shortly. Where do the first years go? She asked. Do you know, Mr. Potter? Dudley looked uncertain. Harry knelt down on his haunches till he was eye level with the little girl. Anywhere they like, he said. It's a big train, plenty of room, and lots of snacks to be had on the trip up. But if you do feel lost, look for a girl named Lily. She'll help you find the right compartment. Really? Petunia asked. Harry nodded most seriously. Lily is your second cousin. Family look out for each other. Petunia mulled that over, and then took her trolley off down the platform with a massive grin. Harry stood and met Dudley's unsure, guilty look. Family look out for each other, Dudley said, his words hollow, almost gaunt. Harry crossed his arms over his chest. I don't blame you for what happened when we were kids, Dudley. We were just that, you know. Kids. What my parents did to you. Harry raised his hand. Forgiven, not forgotten. But I hope to never see them again. That's all I have to say. It's different, Dudley began and gave a nervous chuckle. When it's your kid, it's different. I'm so proud of her, Harry. For being special. For being, well, her. Harry could understand that. He had 3 of his own, with plans for a 4th. The wizarding world needed more children, more life and light. Is it safe for her? Dudley asked. Hogwarts? Yes, Harry said. I've spent my life making sure of that. Thank you for pointing Petunia in Lily's direction. I worry she'll be a bit behind the others. Harry chuckled softly and clapped his cousin on the arm. The owl. That was your idea? Mary thought I was mad, Dudley said. That's my wife. She's normal. I mean, non-magical. Sorry. When I told her I knew some of this world, he waved around at the train, the platform, the blue in the sky. She almost went to stay at her mother's. It's a hard thing, keeping this secret. Harry thought about that, memories of his time at Privet Drive flashing through his mind. Memories of long ago, and so much worse. The dark years, the struggle after the war. I'll get Lily to speak to your daughter, he said. We can exchange a few owls, if you'd like. Any questions you might have? Dudley stared at Harry for a long moment. You'd do that? After, well, everything? He looked flabbergasted. I don't know if I'd be so kind if the roles were reversed. I've seen what can happen to someone who dwells on unkindness and anger. I've seen it tear the world apart. Harry offered his hand, and Dudley grasped it firmly. Never again. His Perfect Life by Lilwa Dexel. Read by a Bag of Vicodin. The ball bounced past me in the school hallway. I remember the checkered floor. This was Croon Lake High, 1968. I had just gotten out of class. Jessie was watching me from the other side of the hall. This was my chance. Aaron Dykes stumbled after the ball, chasing it straight into Charlie Jordan's large jock frame. Aaron's glasses cracked, and so did his nose. The scrawny boy landed on his butt on the floor, blood dripping out of his nose. Look where you're going, freak, said Charlie with a smirk. I took a deep breath and was just about to get in the big jock's face. Ah, this was an awesome memory. That's when the corridor froze. Aaron dusted himself off and threw the broken glasses over his shoulder. His already flushed face took on a deeper crimson color. He put his hands on his hips, and I noticed that his eyes had turned yellow. All right, he said. So this is where you sweep in and save poor Aaron from getting bullied. Which results in Jessie, the cutest girl in the school, taking an interest in you. You start dating, And after a few months, you meet her dad and become really good best friends. He eventually offers you a prestigious job at his law firm, but you politely decline because you want to pursue art. Your paintings become, excuse my French, the shit, and you go on to build a massively successful career. You marry Jessie, and with your support, she becomes a renowned HIV doctor, saving hundreds of people. Fucking sunshine and pina colada all the way. Horns sprouted from the top of Aaron's head, and a snake's tongue whipped across his black lips. What's your point? My point? He leaned in so close that I could smell the sulfur on his breath. My point is that you're not suffering. You think your life was free from mistakes. You died without regrets. I didn't make the rules here. Aaron's sickly yellow eyes narrowed. He revealed a row of pointy teeth. I want to show you something. Go ahead, I said. I've already lived my life. Nothing I haven't seen before. The school corridor faded out, and we landed on the shore of a small lake. A boy and a girl chased each other along the beach, laughing and shouting. I had seen the girl in a photo somewhere. Idyllic, isn't it? Aaron said. Such an innocent friendship. Sure, I said. But why are you showing me this? Aaron smiled broadly and snapped his clawed fingers. We landed in a rickety old shack. A man was lying face down on the dusty floor with a needle stuck in his arm. Do you see now? Aaron asked. I shook my head. Do you remember that one time when your wife called? You were on your first art expo in Paris? You didn't have time to talk to her. She was really upset. I have a vague memory of that. Aaron's grin grew wider. We were back in the school corridor. He put his scaly arm buddying across my shoulders. Your wife lost a friend that day. Yes, to HIV if I recall. She enrolled in medical school after that. Aaron laughed. You still don't see it? I don't. You're so blind. Who were the kids on that beach? He whispered in my ear. It was Jessie, I said, suddenly remembering her childhood photo in her parents' home. Who was the boy? Aaron said, and picked up the broken glasses from the floor and put them on over his nose. It was you, I said. It was Aaron. That's right. Jessie and Aaron were good friends. Jessie had always helped Aaron as he grew up. His family was poor, he got into drugs at an early age, but Jessie was always there for him. I took a step back, but he leaned in closer. They were such good friends, and she helped Aaron stay clean. That was, of course, until she fell in love with you, and you made her move to Paris right out of high school. Your art was the only thing that mattered. She begged you to stay, but you made her choose. She picked you. A shiver rolled up my spine. That man with the needle in his arm was Aaron. He had died the night she called me in the art gallery. He'd contracted HIV from the dirty needles. He hadn't been able to stay clean without Jessie's support. She loved Aaron like a brother. That's why she took an interest in you when you saved him from Charlie that day. It's not my fault. You built your entire life on the moment you saved poor Aaron from Charlie. Everything you had was because of that moment. I didn't know. Aaron laughed again. You knew, but you didn't care. You only saved him because Jessie was watching. I'm sorry. Go on, boy, Aaron said, and sat down on the floor where the big jock had pushed him. Go on, save me now. Relive all those glorious moments you had in life. Thank you for listening.